Hi, Tripti. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. Pleasure.
I guess let's start at the beginning. You've got a really unique perspective, both as an international student and as the co-founder of Student Circus. So tell us about how it all began and your experience of looking for a job.
Yeah, sure. It's been quite a roller coaster ride, I would say. For me, those of you who don't know, my name is Tripti. I'm one of the co-founders at Student Circus and an ex-international student, which is super important. I'm from India and I came to the UK in 2013, just a year after the post-study work visa was abolished in the UK, right? So things were kind of huffling and juffling, but I stayed there, did my master's at CAS Business School. And as soon as I started applying for jobs, that's when the the journey began. It was obviously incredible time at the university. I cannot be more thankful for the education I've got. But when it came to job search, there were not one or two, but there were so many hurdles that, those 4 months that you get after your course just fly. You've got to do so much in that short period. The average time for someone to find a job in the UK is 6 months, and an international student is given 4. So, as soon as I came into my master's, everybody was applying for jobs. And at that time, I was like, what are they doing? Why are they in a rush? And towards, the March, April period, it was when we realized, well, those guys who were applying were actually doing the right thing. And we, missed an entire cycle because we were so occupied in other things, understanding the culture, getting adapted to the degree, doing our tests, which were a completely different format. I can go on and on about the things that I was busy doing and not applying for jobs. So it was a very difficult time, I would say, getting to that stage where I started my applications, understanding about the UK market, matching jobs with sponsors and with visas, and asking those employers, will you sponsor a job for internationals? And in all of that, I forgot that I had to prepare for an application firsthand. So I had no idea of a psychometric test, application, situational assessments, nothing. I was only desperate and I was doing the math in my head. Okay, if I apply for 200 jobs, I'm going to get through at least 50 and at least 5 employers are going to sponsor. And that was like a disaster. And that is something I want to tell every student, please don't do that math. It plays against you. So, and that was stayed on till the very last day of my visa. I remember it was the 30th of January, 2016, I think. And, I had got an internship though. I got an internship with a startup in London. They wanted to have me full time. And that's when kind of, that whole idea stuck. We were sitting one evening group, me and a few friends were sitting and we said, this is too hard. Why can't there be an easier way of applying? You can order a cab with one click. Why can't you apply for jobs that sponsor similar way? And we asked our university if there's something, and they were like, no. We spent another 2 3 months. We were completely like, there is something. That it's not possible to have not have something so obvious in the market, right? So that's when it was pretty much our light bulb moment, and the university helped us then get onto our entrepreneur visas. So we got onto our graduate entrepreneur visas, established the company, started out the business, and in 2016, and that's where it all began.
Yeah, so that's how, we were just talking before. I can remember when Student Circus got started, and I just thought, this is genius. Like, this is such a brilliant idea. And also, it looked like a lot of work, and you guys, you sort of worked because it was it's an easy, difficult problem to solve, right? Because it seems so obvious, but then all the moving parts. So, sort of tell us about kind of getting it started and the sort of hurdles that you faced initially in rolling out Student Circus. And as you well know, just kind of going, oh my God, I've got this magic, I've got these magic beans. And then you show them to someone, they're like, nah, no, I'm not really that interested. So what was the process of, because you guys have, you scaled really well, you're in 40 partner universities now. What's that process been like?
I think we've enjoyed every bit of it, even if, out of, I would say, 7 days, 4 days are like, why are we doing this? Let's just go back to India, get a nice job. But the 3 days kept us moving. So here we are. So initially, when we pitched the idea to the university, they were quite excited about the possibilities, right? And I would say University of Bristol, where Dhruv went, and City University, CATS, where I went, they were extremely helpful. Like, I cannot thank them enough even till date. They were, always there for us to hear out our business plan, do the interviews, equipped us with the whole business planning. So, as an international student, as again, we had nobody we knew in the UK. Usually it's all about the network, right? All our friends had, either gotten jobs or moved back to their home countries, and we were pretty much like left in the ocean um, without any contacts to forget about a job, right? To start a business where everything goes from scratch. So, the university helped us set the company, the account system, everything pretty much. And then we also applied for our entrepreneur visas, through the help of the university. So we literally started the business with £0 in our business bank account. Another great thing about, being at a UK university as well, they're able to help you start your own business. But I think the biggest thing that we learned from there was always keep your kind of the journey and why you're doing this in mind. So that was our biggest motivator. We went through that cycle of a very, very difficult time, which could have been solved or could be solved very easily, one step at a time, obviously. But we interviewed somewhere around 300 students in random libraries around London to ask them where they would use something like this if we developed it. Obviously, right? We had to go to our parents and ask them for more money after studying in a UK university. It was a challenge. So we had to really prove things. We were running around with our tabs in libraries and asking students, and 99% of the students said they would use something like Student Circus, which was a great tick box for everyone. So at that time, we wanted to only do very basic thing. So we came back to India, got in touch with our contacts to develop a website, a simple website where we could say who we are, what we do, put in a list of jobs. We reached out to a lot of employers and, kind of asked the university to help us understand the process. So we created a very simple job listing platform where students can go in, filter jobs and apply. That was kind of the motivator there. And then obviously our parents started asking us that, okay, great, we'll sign the check, but how will you make money? Like, we're not going to, be donating all our lives to Student Circus. And we went to employers like a typical recruitment agency would to say that, look, we'll help you hire the best talent. And the companies, pretty much like a chicken and egg story, said, we don't have any users on the platform, so how are you going to help us? And that's where one of the most important people in our life met us, which was Mr. Dusty Amboliwala. He was the ex-vice chancellor at University of East London. And he came on board, helping us, and he became the chair of our advisory board. And through a lot of discussions, we were kind of able to agree that potentially universities can be one to be looped in and be the most beneficial of a service if we were able to give one. And soon after, in like 6 months, we did an alpha launch, a beta launch, got 500 students to use it, hours and hours of development and brainstorming. We literally wrote every line that there is on the website. We were able to do the copy ourselves because we didn't have not even like 1 penny extra to give to someone. So we did that ourselves, and most of it sounded lame at that time. Obviously, like let's just push it out, right? Go to the market, let the market respond, and that's how we learned a lot of things. We see a lot of companies, constantly being like, oh, we need to test first, and do a lot of things before they go in. And that was actually one of the things that we didn't do. We just straight away launched without any hesitation. So that really worked in our favor. We were able to, pitch the product to our own alma maters, our own universities, at a very low price point to test it. They came on board instantly. And, the moment we had brands like Lancaster, Cass Business School, University of Bristol, etc., it was much, much easier to approach other universities. They were listening then. And the word apparently does travel fast in 100 universities, right? So we were we were hustling our way through to, randomly going to universities across the country, giving our leaflets away, telling students about it, gradually building that process. We got 4 and 10 and 20 and, now 40 universities. So that's how it did begin.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think you touched on a lot of points, which are really simple but so important. Which is, number one, what do they want? User testing, asking people, putting aside preconceived notions of solutions, and also just iterating. Kind of going through a lot of people, and this applies to so many different things, right? It could be something as simple as getting a student to finish their CV, and they'll go, oh no, but it's not quite right. And we, I always say to students, it's like, where's your data? Like, where's
Yeah,
your response rate? And they're like, oh no, but I haven't sent it. And I'm like, well, then the answer is no. Like, if you're not going to ask, if you're not going to release, if you're not going to
correct.
iterate, the answer is no. And,
Yeah.
straight away. But yeah, that's fantastic. I didn't know that. And that's super interesting. So let's kind of sort of drill back in, because I know that a lot of students know you and you guys have built a fantastic community over the last 5 years, but just break it down to anybody who's watching this, particularly we've got a big audience abroad. How can students use the service? How can they really take advantage of it? And what sort of makes you guys different, as opposed to say going like, oh, I'll just use LinkedIn or I'll just use Indeed?
Yeah, I mean, so the service is open for everyone. It's free for students. Students do not have to pay a pound to access it. We've got two type of users on the website. So any student can go to www.studentcircus.com and create an account. All the students who are at our partner universities, get the unlimited, unrestricted access for filtered jobs, which are verified with employers. So every job, Mike, on the website, it has been verified to give a sponsorship visa for skilled worker visa, or tier 2 as we call it, for an international student. So we have done that massive hard work of reaching out to employers, confirming it that, okay, if you've got, say, and that's where I think is a unique point where, we're not only saying that, okay, PwC is a sponsor. Everybody knows PwC is a sponsor, but which jobs is PwC sponsoring for? Because they wouldn't sponsor for all of the 50 graduate schemes that they have listed on their website, right? I'll give you a couple of examples where it really helps a student. Mazars in the UK has about 6 to 8 offices across the country. They only sponsor for international students in 3 offices across the country. Again, companies like Nestle, Xerox do not clearly state that they're not going to sponsor any international student. But if you're a student studying supply chain or procurement, you would straight away go to Nestle without a blink of the eye, right? So there are so many things that, you cannot keep up. It's too much information. We are bringing that to just one click away. You will find that, on the website. So students have access to that. We've got immigration guides to different categories of visas that there are in the UK. And there is obviously all of the things to create a CV, practice interviews, etc. on the website. If you're a user who's from a non-partner university, we still give you 30 days of free access, right? And you can you can apply for as many jobs as you like. After the 30 days, only the job category is ticked off, and you can still apply for internships and placements on the platform. So you can continue to use it for more shorter term opportunities, and make use of the immigration guides, etc. All of that as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's a massive. I'm really pleased that you mentioned PwC. I think is the only company which will explicitly say in their job description whether this job is eligible, because it is dependent upon role, salary, geographical location, and also the size of that department and the cost allocation based upon seniority of staff. And it's so, I mean,
but
dude,
that's why, like, as a student, I remember under the time pressure, you don't read that. You don't go and read every job description or every FAQ or every word that your company has said, although you're supposed to, but practically speaking, you cannot, right? So that's where it all comes down to. We're all about saving student time. Like that's the number one thing they cannot lose, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just it is a brilliant product. And speaking from, and we spoke about this before, having developed, um, having led a team to develop a similar product,
Yeah.
I can remember how difficult it is contacting employers, and just like endless employers, and they're like, "What do you mean? Do we sponsor?" Like, I don't know, because you'll speak to HR teams, and they're like, I don't. When you say sponsorship, they're like, "Do you want money? Are you a society?" And it's like, no, no. Do you give them a visa? It's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And it's that. So the fact that you guys have put in that work is really is enormous, because it's so one of the biggest frustrations that we hear from students. They'll say, why do they say they sponsor and then not sponsor me? How can we differentiate that? And it's like, well, actually you can't, but through Student Circus you can, because that is still a process which cannot be automated. Right?
It is. And that's one of the biggest challenges also of running a business, because as a company, when you want to grow and you want to go for that external funding, you cannot explain an investor always how this could be automated and you'll have a gazillion jobs on your platform. We are always very realistic about the fact that, look, we're trying to solve a problem which is, we can't rely on a bot to do that. We can train a bot, which we are doing now. So we've become, I don't know, 100 times more tech savvy now. We've got aggregators in place, bots in place, different things to make sure that things become scalable. We started with say 100 jobs. Now we have, in the graduate time, we have 2,000 jobs on the platform. So, but you're right, a lot of time actually went in explaining or educating the employer about what exactly are we talking about. So we've done everything, to be honest. It was a beg borrow steal situation. We have posed as a student and written to a employer. We have asked our career service to do it. We've asked our friends and family to do it. We did everything we could to make sure we get a response. Ultimately, it did happen, but there's still that list of, well, you've never heard from these companies, not worth it. You have, so that process goes on and on.
Yeah, because it is that, I mean, it's a funny thing when you try and explain to a student the concept of friction, and you say, look, if it's not frictionless, they don't care. And they're like, but what about me? And what about what I want? I'm like, dude, what about them? Like, they've got 100 other things to do. You're there creating friction for them, and literally a confused mind says no. And it's like, no, like, but you sponsor, no, just don't want to do it, not really interested. And it's never personal, right?
Yeah.
They're not, I mean, I feel the UK is not perfect, but personally, I feel proud of what I feel is a pretty realistic meritocracy.
Yeah.
But it is, from an individual's perspective, if there's friction, you're more likely to say no than yes.
Yeah, true. And I think, but also sometimes that's where in kind of the student side comes in as well, right? Since we started working with universities, there's so many things which have come to us like, oh my God, that could have just been like easier to do. So, for example, if a student kind of understands this process before they come into the UK, they're less likely to kind of, skip that adjusting period, and, that expectation is set. So we've been campaigning with a lot of universities to do, career pre-departures for international students, which makes sense because July, August, they know which university they're coming to. Talk to them before, an hour a student will give hundreds of hours to, get a job. That's what they're potentially coming here to do. So do that before they come in. Don't wait till November, December, and then, all the opportunities vanish. So these are the kind of, I would say, institutional problems, which again, the result comes back to the student, right? They're the ones who kind of have the negative impact. But there's plenty a university already does. There's some things they cannot do potentially, right? So that's one of the things that should be done better, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think there'll always be, as in any size and scale of institution, there will be systemic problems which over time will be overcome. But definitely the environment, as opposed to, when I started working with students in 2013, it was just absolutely barren. There wasn't anything, and I think now there is a small but growing. It's a very small ecosystem of people, but there are some. Exactly right. You know, we've talked about crossing paths, but I think there is a good, small, growing network of information, and most importantly, just freely accessible quality advice and resources to allow a student to kind of go. And a lot of times, you know, now we're getting contacted by people who haven't even come to the UK.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh my God, I heard about you guys from my friend, or I watched you on YouTube, and I'm coming, and I just wanted you to know that and I think that, to me, I feel that really kind of warms my heart, because I think, wow, that's great. That's somebody who's coming fully knowing and has, with clear expectations and a list of resources. The students don't have to pay anything initially if they don't want to.
Yeah, true. And I think also one of the things that probably has become quite easier to access is, things like social media, the way things are working now, just networking wise. I do remember back in 2011 when I was trying to do this entire process my own, and universities' attitude as well, right? They are changing the way they communicate as well. It's not the same what it was, just 3 years. They're doing amazing sessions now, drop-ins. So yeah, things are changing.
Yeah, so obviously you've come across now tens of thousands of students, and so this is really a question for a student who's watching this for the first time, has got no idea. They're like, I want to find a job, almost like you were saying in the beginning when you did that quick math about applying for 200 jobs. Someone's got to get back to me and give me a job. What's the advice that you would, I suppose, A, give your younger self, and B, give that student who's like, okay, give me like a hot take what can I do? Where can I start?
So, two things I would say that are super, super important. Firstly, I would say start as early as you can. I think that's kind of everybody will keep saying that to a student or to you as whoever's watching the video. Don't take them lightly, because ultimately it takes time to find a job, right? You cannot take the process for granted. You coming to a different country, you cannot give 100% kind of responsibility to somebody else. This is your responsibility. You're the one who has to be aware of what it looks like, what do you have to do, and you take appropriate kind of actions towards it. And I would say that, if you're coming to university, there is no way that you do not have access to a lot of resources. There's so much that a university does. A part of me, I know that I was at fault when I was a student, that I didn't do things as I should have, right? When I did see my colleagues applying for jobs, I took it lightly. I did not approach my career services or, external help to understand why and what's happening, right? So a lot of the things that should be done, a student needs to do it. And there's enough people. And UK is so amazing, I would say, when it comes to, people helping out people. I've seen this as a student, up until when, even now, if I'm dropping a random message to someone for help, they always respond. You just have to be so nice and genuine and just be patient about it. Don't be pokey, but talk to the alumni, right? Talk to the careers, talk to anyone you can. They'll give you a solution. There's no way they can't, right? So I think a lot of it you have to do as a student. And so start on time, do all of the things, keep your eyes and ears open. That's the thing. And one thing that I would say is, one of the things I've seen and heard employers say a lot is how international students don't play their advantages enough in their CVs and interviews. Right? So when we're talking to a lot of employers, you won't believe, Mike, employers are hungry for talent. And as you have seen, right, they want good people to lead the business as well at some point. They need people to run the business. It's all about people. So they're equally hungry for talent, which they know international students have, but they're just not able to articulate it properly at times. So, students will ask us questions like, oh, I've got previous experience in my home country. Should I put that on my CV? Of course, that's the top thing you should be putting. So, often that thing about well, I'm not from the UK. Should I do this? Should I do that? Well, it kind of gets in the way. And employers obviously want very, outspoken individuals with, everything that they can do. So I would really say international students give themselves far less credit than they should. So they should really step that up and, be very, very confident in whatever they're doing. If you don't know English, don't worry about it. As long as you're able to work on that and, articulate it, make sure employers understand. If they are talking to somebody who's not from the UK, their English will not be perfect. Nobody's is, right? So that's fine. As long as you're able to display that with a very human kind of touch and, be a little kind of funny about it, maybe they're okay with that. They will hire you instantly. So yeah, those are the two things I would say that might be a little more helpful and will help students get that first job here.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, start early is always a top takeaway. And also just thinking about, ultimately seek out experience, seek out those who have gone before you, whatever dimension that may be, right? So sometimes I spoke to students who said, oh, I spoke to this person and it wasn't helpful. And I went, great. Everyone that you speak to will teach you one or two things, what you want and what you should do, or what you don't want and what you shouldn't do. So I said, you just learned something. But I said, your careers service has more than one careers advisor. There's more than one alumni. And also talking about, international students are fantastic, right? They're multicultural, multilingual, and multidimensional, right? Because they've got all these different ways of approaching it. And the kind of thing to say is like, look, first of all, just like you were talking about when you're getting momentum with Student Circus, it's like just iterate, get out your MVP, your minimum viable product, your CV, send some stuff out, and then be like, oh, okay, that's not working. And also be aware of what's working, what's not working. And the wonderful thing that students have now, as opposed to 2011, 2013, 2016, even 2020, right? Every year, I just see another company, another person who steps up and goes, wow, here's a really interesting perspective. And we spoke about that before the call, and we embrace that. That's something to, when I had like last year, when I saw Anastasia start UK Hired, I was like, this one is good. I was like, let's speak, let's talk. And she's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, this is good. We need this, because we need more quality services and different angles and dimensions to improve the whole. Because look, at any one time, there are 500,000 students, 670,000 students at some point, where that's 1% of the British population, right?
I mean, how many can I talk to, right?
How many can you talk? How many can we all talk to? And there's somebody, and there's different flavors, there's different types of advice, and that's wonderful. But ultimately, like, seek it out, because unlike when you were getting going, unlike when I sort of started, and there is stuff out there, and a lot of it, you can get a lot of good advice for free.
Absolutely. I mean, there's not only, I would say, not only these resources, etc. But again, so many people have started out to help as alumni, in their own ventures, to consult, etc., etc. And everybody relates to this problem, right? If I've been through it and you drop me a line, I'll be like, my heart melts. I will write a line back, right? But I feel like also students, and that's something we learned actually while we were in the UK, you have to become shameless after a certain kind of, you're the one who needs help. So you need to, keep going at it till you've heard a no, and you have to ask, and ask as well, right? So if somebody's not replied once, maybe nudge twice. I mean, constantly trying to get, if you're really, really dedicated. And, for that matter, Mike, I saw a lot of my British friends, EU friends also really struggle to get a job. So as per the process, it is difficult. Not like they didn't need a visa, so they got jobs like this. No, it took them months and months to find a job as well. So at that point, for me, it was like, well, even they are facing a difficulty of another kind, well, but it is difficult. So, at some point, we have to stop saying that it's, the job market is difficult for everyone. That's the fact.
Yeah, brilliant. And I guess just to sort of round off, just any sort of interesting, like surprising facts or surprising mistakes and lessons, just stuff that you think, oh my God, that's so obvious. Why don't people do that? Any little tidbits of sort of insider knowledge and experience, Tripti?
I think the biggest insider knowledge for me at that point was, well, really silly. But when you go to that PDF for the list of sponsors, which I was on like day in and day out and day night, I after a point I didn't really go through the names of the companies the way that it's listed. I would always do a reverse process if it helps someone. You always start with I when I was searching for an internship, what I did reverse was I started listing like or googling 100 top kind of startups in the UK, and then instead search them back on to the list. And I started making my kind of own profile as well at that time about this. So often students think, well, I want to work in a KPMG sponsors. I know a lot of students who go in and say bank and then search on that list for what banks there are. Banks might not be listed as banks on that list, right? So it's very difficult to go through a list which has there's 500 pages in a PDF and then download it, etc. And obviously, I would still say that be careful with that list. It's got a lot of surprises in it. It's one of the resources which is it's there, but it's it's kind of a lot of times it's misleading as well. So we still have our system kind of linked to that list, and we've used it all this while, but every student should use it with a lot of care and caution. It can lead you to directions that you don't want to go in, right? That list has a lot of clubs, societies, and probably companies who have no interest in hiring international students. So don't waste time applying for them. Rather create your own dream list and then probably sort this process out. And in fact, Mike, on that note, if you do we've seen a lot of students who've gotten jobs. They applied to a company did not have a sponsorship license. They made such a good application that the company got a license to hire them. And I've not seen one, two, or seen hundreds of such cases in the past few years. Where there's if somebody's studying in Leeds, for example, they applied to a consulting or architecture firm in Leeds, did not have the license. Student made sure that they're able to kind of do the process with the employer, help them with the process with the university. We have helped. I mean, I've lost count, but we've had so many employers for free to tell them about the process so they can hire that one student, right? So there's no limit really. You can do as much as you're kind of motivated and dedicated. The startup that I worked at for 6 months was ready to get a sponsorship license for me. They had 8 people. Only I was the one who knew their banking password. Imagine. Right? So you can really get very creative about what you want to do, who you want to be. It's just need that little bit of a push. Don't think that you're an international student and somebody will come there to help you. You have to be there to help your own self, and that's always we've seen students do such wonderful things in these 5 years, and when we were students, we were kind of aspiring to do more and more. So if you're out there, you've got this wonderful opportunity to be independent, sustain yourself, learn something new. Do it. I think if find the right people to do it with, and who motivate you. There's just too many opportunities out there. You can convince an employer, if not, apply for one.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point. And there's too much proof freely available to show that it is possible. For anybody to realistically and logically say it's not possible is really to be in denial of a lot of evidence. It is difficult. That is something that which everybody is kind of in agreement. But it is certainly possible, and it was doable. And yeah, the same thing. So how can everybody find you, connect with you? Where would they go? What would they do?
So obviously you can drop into studentcircus.com, drop a line. We've got a big contact form. You can reach out to us on social media. if anybody wants to write to me personally, they can always, do it through LinkedIn as well. Drop in an email at hello@studentcircus.com. That's a HELLO@studentcircus.com. And yeah, we've got a super nice team now who is constantly talking to students, letting us know what everybody's thinking. So yeah, we're always there to help.
That's brilliant. Tripti, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.